Welcome to week 2. We'll be reviewing chapters 2 and 3 from our primary text this week, starting with the notion that organizations want to be cost effective. They need to turn a profit. Even if they're a nonprofit, they need to meet budget. And so because of that, we as public relations practitioners need to understand that even though it may be difficult, we have to speak the same language I mentioned last week. We have to value and show value for our efforts. Sometimes public relations practitioners will say that, cultivating relationships is a fuzzy business. It's hard to document that with numbers. But insofar as it's possible, you need to find a way to show value to that organization. And one way to do that is through strategic planning. And that strategic planning includes goals, objectives, a problem statement. Some of you may be familiar with SMART goals or objectives. That stands for SMART, or specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and timely. It's just one tool that some people use when they're developing the objectives or goals. Your author offers some others as well. And when you think about this public relations interaction with the organization's strategy, understand that the strategic planning will lead to a problem statement, right? Or will include a problem statement. It also includes the mission statement, the vision statement. Those are some of the tools that you can use as part of the strategic planning. I'm in my office now, and I have the command's mission statement on the wall directly across from my desk. And so as I work, especially if I'm working on a new communication plan or maybe updating a plan that we've had before, I can reference that mission statement and make sure that the planning that I provide and the recommendations that I give specific to our mission is tied to the overall command mission. So think about your own organization and what mission it has and how you are supporting that mission. Another element that I mentioned earlier is the problem statement. And your authors very rightly write that the problem statement needs to be specific, right? The more specific and the more details you can provide in that problem statement, the more clearly you can define the problem, the more effective your communication plan, in fact, the more effective your entire strategic plan will be. It reminds me of a quote from Abraham Lincoln, who said, "If I have 6 hours to chop down a tree, I'm going to spend the first 4 sharpening my axe." The problem statement is the axe, and the sharper it is, the sharper you can make that axe, the more effectively your strategic plan, you'll be able to strategically plan, manage, and communicate. So that's our text for this week, just a quick overview. We have 2 readings. The first is Dozier and Broom, talking about the evolution of the manager role in public relations. The first objective of the study was to analyze the stability of those roles. Think about 1979 and 1991. So they pulled data sets from those 2 and then compared to see how those roles had changed. I don't want to spoil it for you. You can read the article yourself. I will offer this piece of advice. Don't get too bogged down in the details. It was a pretty exhaustive study. Just look for those observations and conclusions that you can use to support your own research for this class. Of course, the research that you'll be providing for your final project, but also for your discussion posts as well. And then I think even more importantly than this class, pull any nuggets out of there that you can use in your own role as a public relations professional or whatever role you happen to be filling in your organization. All right, moving on to Moss. What do communication managers do? This article presents the findings of an international collaborative research program. And that program was designed to map, explain, and compare the main elements of the managerial role provided by communication and public affairs practitioners working in a range of organizational settings. They focused on the communication or public relations professionals at a managerial level in both the UK or within the UK-based organization. And the study uncovered what appeared to be major elements of managerial responsibility and managerial tasks. Okay, now most managers acknowledge that they continue to retain personal responsibility for what they saw as more important elements of the technical work. I'll talk about in just a moment. But as with most things, I encourage you, don't get wrapped up in the minutia of what's the managerial responsibility versus a managerial task. For those of you who have been doing public relations for a while, you've probably moved up in the organization or moved up in the field of public relations, and you find that you do fewer and fewer specific tasks and serve more as a leader to others who are performing those tasks. And this is consistent with what the study found in terms of, the more important tasks. We as public relations leaders tend to carry that responsibility. I find this role, or this to be true in my role. I currently serve as the national director for the Navy's Media Outreach Program. So we have teams that go around the world. They interview sailors. They share those sailor stories with hometown media. I still, to this day, insist that I go on a certain number of trips every year. And while I'm on those trips, I do the tasks of public relations. That's our core mission. And so I want to make sure that I understand the ins and outs of what my folks have to do for every trip. And I think it helps me better understand what tools, training, experience, other resources that they need to effectively complete our mission. It's also something I enjoy doing, so it's easy for me to do, and it's something that I get a lot of satisfaction out of traveling around and interviewing sailors and getting into that core part of our public relations mission. Well, that's it for this week. As always, stay ahead with your assignments, stay engaged in the discussion board, and most importantly, enjoy this time of learning.